Good day and welcome to the Frontline Chatter podcast brought to you by the World of EUC. I am your host, Jarian Gibson, and I am back today with one of our co-hosts, Sean Massey. How you doing today, Sean?
I'm good, Jarian. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Hoping to see what this weather brings in. We'll see if I'm able to travel tomorrow or not, or if I get grounded. So we'll find out tomorrow morning, I guess.
Yeah, you're supposed to get a lot more snow, aren't you?
Yeah, up to 6 to 10 inches. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see what happens tonight. It's supposed to start here this afternoon. So,
well, hopefully it's not too bad.
But today we are with one of our founding partners of the World of EUC. We are here with Gaby Grau from Nutanix. How are you doing today, Gaby?
Oh, good. I'm almost done with the day while you just start.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us all the way from Germany and being here with us today. So we won't take too long today, knowing that it's getting into the end of your day and into your evening. So let's go ahead and start. Tell us about yourself and what you do at Nutanix.
So I'm with Nutanix now 6 years. Tomorrow is my 6-year anniversary. And I'm an advisory solution architect for EUC. So the title of the role has changed multiple times, but I'm still doing the same stuff I've done when I started 6 years ago. I call myself the translator between customers and Nutanix and EUC customers. So I come from Citrix. I was there 8 years. So I speak the language that Nutanix folks don't. So I help progressing the cell, help sizing the solution, and jump in if there's any issues, which we basically never see, of course. But
there's never any problems.
Stuff happens. So yeah. And about myself, I'm 44 years old now. I always have to think about it because age is just a number, right? I have 2 sons, 7 and 9. I live close to Munich, so I know the snow issue. I feel you. I hope it's not getting too bad.
Thank you.
Right. Well, it's great to have you on the podcast, Gaby. And I think we can kick it off a little bit here with for those in the EUC space, who might not be familiar with Nutanix. Can you kind of give us an overview of who Nutanix is, what they do, what makes them unique, and how they kind of fit into the overall EUC space? I know there's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack. So maybe if you never heard of Nutanix, we are not a cereal bar, so that's for sure. Because sometimes you get that joke nuts, Nutanix, whatever. It's not funny if you have to explain the joke. Anyways, so the background of Nutanix is basically when the hyperscalers started being more successful. Our founders basically coming from that background from Google, and they had the vision of bringing that simplicity to on-premises data centers. So that's basically what they did. They took a standard server, added local storage, added some storage magic to combine that storage into one large storage pod, which is usable throughout all the nodes in the cluster, and made it pretty easy to maintain high performance and self-healing infrastructure on premises, like the stuff you would expect from a hyperscaler, but in your own data center.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of Nutanix over the years, and I know EUC was one of their original use cases, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think one of the first, was it the first $1 billion Nutanix made, was basically EUC workloads.
Yeah. So what makes Nutanix an ideal solution for EUC compared to kind of that traditional data center architecture? Right? You mentioned, you take the nodes, you add some local storage, you sprinkle a little magic on top. What makes Nutanix, that solution for EUC that people should put in their data center?
Mm-hmm. What is it end user needs?
Yeah.
It is a performant desktop, right? They don't want to wait ages during logon. They don't want to wait until the application is started. And with our architecture having local storage and virtual machines always being able to access local storage, we give the user experience. And no matter how big you scale the solution, if you go from 200 users to 2,000 users, as you scale the environment, the user experience stays the same. And also, if you look at provisioning, especially looking at Citrix, we made it pretty easy. Like if you want to have storage efficient provisioning, you would jump to PVS without a blink of an eye. And I love PVS. I worked a lot with PVS when I was at Citrix. And I also was the Zen server specialist, but don't tell anyone. I love PVS, right? But it's a bit of complex, and you need to put some thought in. And if things doesn't work out in your network, this can be like a not so nice experience. And we just removed that piece. So because we have that data locality, we can basically give the virtual machines local storage boots with a shared disk. So we can combine the shared enterprise storage experience. When you create a new virtual machine, it doesn't take long. It takes 1 or 2 minutes to copy the machine. But on the other hand, we deliver PVS performance.
Cool.
So one of the things we know with the EUC space or in life in general, that change is always constant. And it seems the past couple of years, we've had a lot of change in the EUC space. So what has Nutanix seen from customers and prospects as it relates to that?
I think, the change I see, and of course you have maybe a different view because US and Europe are always a bit different, and it also comes to where actually in Europe we are. But the change I've seen is during COVID, everyone just punched hardware into the EUC solutions. Nothing was redesigned. It was just scaled what they had. But now, actually, customers, we rethink their EUC environments. I see a lot of more flexibility going into, the VDI part grows, the apps part shrinks, but it's still there. There are still a lot of use cases. And we see a lot of redesign also incorporating cloud services.
Okay. So, when we were talking in the last couple of questions, you talked about, the Nutanix cloud platform itself from like a base layer, having that local storage to be able to deliver, really good performance, kind of like PVS-like performance. But what are some of the other EUC-centric features or features of the Nutanix Nutanix cloud platform that also benefit EUC? Is there anything else customers could take advantage of by adopting Nutanix to improve or reduce the administrative burden of their EUC platform?
A lot. So if you talk about administrative burden, the first thing comes to mind is the whole updating process. We make it a lot easier. We have that lifecycle manager where you can basically update everything like your storage disk, your GPUs, hypervisor, just in one package, and we take care of all of it. Like you just hit start and we do the rolling upgrade one by one. Might take time depending also on the cluster size, but I know a lot of customers, they don't care it takes time because it just works. We move the virtual machines back and forth, clear the node, and also while we do that, we still make sure that if one other node goes down during the process, your environment is not impacted.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for sure one thing that takes a lot of hassle from the administrator's brain. I'm sure some of you listeners know René. I think he was the one, he tweeted that he just started an update process on his cluster, and he's going on vacation now. So how many administrators would do that to their live environment? You have to have a lot of trust in your solution to do that. So that's one thing. Another thing is basically name me one EUC solution where you don't need file share. Like most profile solutions require file share. You have user data that needs file sharing, maybe your PLM data, whatever. So we also package that. You can use Nutanix file services on top of your EUC solution, and it's really easy to implement. The most complex thing for big customers to implement files is to get 9 IPs that we need for these file servers. I've been, before I joined Citrix, I was 5 years with NetApp, and also while I was at Citrix, I maintained the local NetApp we had there, and so I know how complex file services can be, and it's a whole different experience to deliver file services on Nutanix. And we basically also make it high availability per default. So we deploy 3 virtual machines. So if one fails, there's still the other one, and we split the users automatically on the machine. So we just make it easy.
Nice.
The next one is networking security. So in my experience, I know a lot of customers, they either put one thing in all network, or maybe some do a split in different VLANs to categorize virtual machines, but that doesn't stop the inter-chatter between the virtual machines. We provide microsegmentation, so where we really can drill down on a service level and just allow service level based communication between the virtual machine and the service it needs to access.
So what I'm hearing then is you can take, it's not just, virtualization and storage that Nutanix provides, but it provides a full cloud services suite on premises. So if I were to compare it to AWS or Google, you have that ability to kind of segment your traffic. I can do it per VM. I have a file service that I can just consume. I have storage services that I could just consume. And I'm sure there's more in there beyond what's there for EUC that enterprises could take advantage of to have a full on-premises public cloud-like experience.
But it's not just on premises, right, Gaby?
Yeah, exactly. So this would be the next one. I think in the beginning, you asked me about how things changing for the customers, and we see that shift to hybrid multi-cloud scenarios. Mm-hmm. And this is where we also can help, because having a multi-cloud is really complex. You have different languages, different setups, different instance types, different agents you need to deploy in the virtual machines. And we just remove that hassle by giving you basically the on-site experience on bare metal services in your cloud of choice.
Okay. And are there any integrations between any of the EUC providers and the Nutanix cloud platform where I could, tie it directly into Prism Central or Prism itself?
We have that, of course, with Citrix. Currently, the way to go is basically you connect your Citrix management layer, if it's on premises or DaaS, you connect that with a AHV plugin. If you run a different hypervisor with, of course, the option you have with Nutanix, you don't need that plugin. But for now, we basically say AHV, and then we have the Prism elements as cluster management layer, and you connect your hosting connection to that Prism elements. And if you have a second cluster, you do a new hosting connection and connect it to the Prism elements of that cluster.
Okay.
And the way forward.
You integrate. I'm sorry. So you basically, Citrix will integrate. There's a plugin to connect it directly to Nutanix. Are there? Is Frame still integrated with Nutanix? I remember that being another EUC solution.
Yeah, we do have other EUC solutions integrated with Prism Central. So it's Dizion Frame. I think Workspot is another one we can mention.
Parallels.
There are also some smaller companies like UDS, which is a Spanish company. They're really big in the public sector over there. So Parallels, of course, yes.
Okay. So for those customers who are looking for alternatives then to a recently acquired large hypervisor company, for their EUC solution, Nutanix is a great drop in there with a lot of those integrations already built in.
Yeah, definitely. Like from a Nutanix perspective, it was the best thing that ever happened.
So you mentioned some of your features in the platform. Is there anything new recently or upcoming features, can you tell us about for EUC customers? AOS 7 and AHV 10 was just released. You mentioned, going to Prism Central. So anything that you can tell us that's new for EUC customers?
So I just talked about the Citrix plugin. So we are going to say bye-bye to that one. We're going to integrate directly with Citrix and Prism Central in the future. So there's an early access already out there. If you're interested, please go ahead. With Files 5.0 and now 5.1, we have a feature called VDI Sync, which is pretty cool. So we basically determine from which side a user logs on. So just imagine, I don't know, Jarian, which town or city where?
Kansas City Metro.
And you, Sean?
Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Okay, so you have one cluster in Kansas and you have one cluster in Wisconsin, and you log on in Wisconsin and you get your profile served from Wisconsin. And then you fly over to Kansas and visit Jarian and you log on in Kansas, and then you automatically get your profile delivered in Kansas. So it's really, again, having the user data close to the virtual machine to improve performance. And we basically do that automatically, syncing back and forth.
Nice. So that's kind of cool, because that's like one of the big challenges in multi-site environments is how do I deal with file servers, and Windows file servers are always a pain. So it's great to see, this kind of innovation with multi-site awareness.
Yeah. And container, as nice as they are definitely a pain to synchronize.
Mm-hmm.
Because, once you log on, the container is locked. And well, if you replicate, you might replicate the log, and it's not easy to get rid of that log, but we build it in the user interface. So if a customer or user cannot log on, you just go to your file server and say, all right, remove log, and you're good to go.
Cool. So that's really cool. And that'd be something really cool to check out in a lab. So, you mentioned a second ago, one of the best things that ever happened to Nutanix was, recent changes in the marketplace. So, how is the adoption of Nutanix, and in particular Nutanix cloud clusters, going for EUC customers? And what sort of use cases are you seeing as customers adopt Nutanix in the public cloud?
Mm-hmm. So the adoption is rising, of course, especially when we talk about enterprise customers. Things just take time. So, but for us at Nutanix, it was fun because, well, at times we really struggled to talk to customers because they didn't care much about us. But now these are the same customers that basically call us and say, hey, can you come and talk about Nutanix? So this is pretty cool. And yes, because we are more welcome and the customers are more open to discussions, we see that they are also going to this hybrid multi-cloud route with us. So if a customer thinks about moving their VDI workload to the public cloud for whatever reasons, maybe they even already purchased some credits that they need to get rid of, it's a solution that helps without having to refactor and rethink and rebuild the whole solution. You just take it somewhere else. And a use case we see often is when we talk about disaster recovery. Because for disaster recovery reasons, a lot of customers have 2-3 data centers where you actually just need one to work, but you have to pay for 2 or 3 just to sit there and wait for the worst case to happen, which hopefully never does. So what about I just replicate my data into a S3 bucket, just leave it there, pay a few dollars a month, and then only power it up when disaster strikes. So it can save a lot of money and manpower.
So we talked about a little bit into files earlier. You mentioned customers using that for profiles. They're taking advantage of it for VDI sync. Are there any other features or things they're taking advantage of? And how do you compare that to using like third-party software like Peer, or using built-in replication of like FS Logics or profile management versus using built-in files features?
All right. So in regards to third-party, you have to figure out what is the requirement of the solution, and if you want to spend that extra money for having that extra feature. In regards of building the built-in solutions, I think that's a valid option as well, but especially with FS Logic's Cloud Cache, we saw some major performance impacts during logons. For Citrix, it's more during the log off side. So if you have environment where you have a lot of logons and log off happening, that might not be the solution for you. So again, we really have to see which requirements we have in the solutions and which is the right fit. But this is why we are there, right? To make a good idea and a good architecture for the customer.
What about anything like monitoring the file solution or any kind of data classification? Anything in the product for that?
Yeah, good you mention it. It's like that stuff. Yes, we do have something called Data Lens, which is pretty good and ties in back to the security perspective of things. So Data Lens is a SaaS service that basically monitors and audits file access. So if something out of the ordinary happens, we can make sure the right steps are taken to prevent data getting stolen, or maybe stuff getting encrypted. So it's really a good security add-on. And also gives you an idea on how the data grows, what kind of data is stored. We can make an estimate about how or when you need to add on new storage. But this is also not just for files, with the trending and analysis and all of the reporting part. We also go into Prism Central, where we have a lot of operations sitting there. So just an idea. So a lot of customers are probably going through the transition from Windows 10 to Windows 11. And well, Microsoft is not so much known for making their operating systems more small and efficient. So usually you can expect an impact on the resource requirements, and we can actually help you to estimate, will my solution fit the next Windows update I need to do.
And then, so security-wise, you talked about the Flow product, along with what Data Lens and then also Files Analytics can do. Are there any other features that customers should be aware of security-wise on Nutanix?
I mean, the whole platform is built to be secure by default. So this is something I learned right at the beginning, that security is taking very serious here. So we will not ever release a feature which might compromise security of the systems. And while you get through like 200 pages of hardening guides for other solutions, it's just there, it's out of the box, and we make sure that if someone messes with the system, we basically reverse any changes that could compromise security there.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. And I've noticed there's a lot of, out of the box default security in the Nutanix platform, which is reassuring. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of platforms that aren't optimized, or maybe they have like a baseline enterprise configuration, but then when it comes to, more hardened environments, like you mentioned, the 200-page hardening guide or the long spreadsheet that has all the different options of what you can tune and what you have to do for each different baseline. So it's great to see, some of that built into the product. Now I want to, you mentioned a minute ago talking about like the Windows 10 to Windows 11 migration, and there's a ticking clock with the Windows 10 end of life coming up. Are there any features of Nutanix and the Nutanix platform that EUC customers can take advantage of to help streamline that migration?
Well, we make it quite easy to implement VTPM, because it just you just tick the box and it works. Mm-hmm. So there's no external key manager that you need to implement and use. The other thing is, of course, we do have integration into all the automation systems like Terraform and Ansible, which hopefully you automated your EUC environment to build a consistent image wherever you build it, right? So I would say this is also one of our strengths because we are very open and we finally released our V4 APIs.
Yay!
Well, 6 years at Nutanix, and like this was also one of the first things I learned. We need the V4 APIs to get things done, and now they're here and things are happening.
Yeah, and it's you mentioned like Ansible and Terraform. Another one I've been playing with in my lab is Packer for image building, and the Packer integration with Nutanix is really good. But I actually just submitted a pull request for it over the weekend to add something to make Debian and Ubuntu image building work better. So all those tools that you would use on a public cloud are certainly there, and can be utilized for EUC. Like Packer is really my favorite tool for EUC image building, like to get to that point that you mentioned, Gaby, of having like a consistent output for your base images. So I want to switch gears here now and get into one of our questions that is a little bit more, geared towards very specific use cases, and that's around GPUs. We see a lot more GPU enabled use cases these days, either on the high end applications like, for CAD and design work, or creative use cases. But also, going back years, people like Dane Young and Brian Madden have said that if you're doing Windows 10 or Windows 11, you should have a GPU. So what does the GPU landscape look like on Nutanix? And what sets Nutanix apart in the GPU space?
So I'm sorry I don't get trouble now, but I do disagree that every Windows 10 or every Windows 11 needs a GPU.
I disagree as well.
Just so you know, we're on the same page there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who hear people say that and think they need it. So
yeah. Well, I think Jarian's team has some really significant testing around GPUs and performance benefits and impacts. So a lot of people think you add a GPU and it magically makes the whole environment smoother, frees up CPU resources. This is not the case. Because GPU is nice and it makes pictures look better, videos going smoother, you can do CAD, but you also need more bandwidth. And this bandwidth is, calculated in the CPU. So basically adding a GPU doesn't help lowering your CPU impact. So that's one thing. The other thing, we do have like all the GPUs that you basically are looking for. Like we work with the L4, L4TS. This is like the main GPUs I see currently being used in my projects. And what we do with GPU is we integrated the whole upgrade process into Lifecycle Manager, which makes upgrading the GPU a whole lot easier because you don't have to go anywhere. You have to go somewhere and download the driver, but for now, at least. But then you just add it to your package, and we do all the GPU upgrades for the host to be set, right? So you still need to do the ingest by Packer or whatever, but we automate the GPU updates.
So unlike other hypervisors where you have to go out to NVIDIA and download whatever hypervisor driver and then manually update it on all your hosts, it's just built into the Nutanix platform. So that's
yes and no. Why you still have to download the driver for the host at our website?
okay.
But the rest, you don't have to do manual updates. You just add it to your LCM repository, and then it will go through.
Okay.
Which also is just back because it worked for a long time. Then somebody at Nutanix and somebody at NVIDIA, so both sides are a bit responsible, messed up a little bit, and we ran into a bug. I'm German, I'm direct. I can, I would do a... Case would say I'm Dutch, I'm honest.
Let's say that.
I'm German, I'm direct. So yeah, so both companies made that a little oopsie, and live migration didn't work for some releases, but it's back in, so the LCM rolling upgrade process is back where it should be.
Cool.
And then as you come here closing things down and stuff, and since World of EUC is a community, and we know our users, our community members, and so forth like to get their hands on and lab stuff and test stuff. Sean being one of those. How can our customers, how can customers in Nutanix get their hands on it, the test in their lab? Say they're not a customer today, but they want to just kick the tires on it, or they're a customer today, or they're in our community who want to kind of further their education. What's the best way for them to kind of bring that into their labs and kind of get that feel of Nutanix without having to fully get into Nutanix?
There are several ways to get your hands on. So for one, the simplest way, and I think the less time intense way, is the test drives on our website. So you just Google Nutanix test drive, and you find a bunch of workloads. There's a Citrix test drive where you basically build cloud cluster environment in AWS with Citrix. So it takes you all through the necessary steps. It's kind of a click demo to see how easy it is. If you want to have more hands-on, you could join one of the boot camps we provide. And if you want to have more hands-on, you can actually ask one of your Nutanix representative to maybe have a hosted POC environment where we provide some servers where you can actually play with a full platform for yourself. Or last but not least is our community edition, which basically gives you all the features that you can install on your Intel NUC or whatever you have laying around. Even can use it for your home lab or home data center.
Home data.
Don't laugh. Well,
oh no, I laugh because I have a home data center sitting on the other side of the wall of my office, which is running a 3-node Nutanix Community Edition cluster. So
if you have any questions about Community Edition, Sean is your man.
And I have a home lab still too, but it's mostly shut down because I mostly use the labs at Nutanix now. So as we close things down, and thank you for your time today, Gaby. Any closing remarks, anything that come off the top of your head that we didn't cover, Gaby, today that you want to let the listeners know?
Yes, we do have a big, it's not an EUC conference, but we do have an end user conference coming up in 7th to 9th May in Washington, D.C., where we do have a couple of EUC sessions. I think it's 5. So, and you're going to meet all your EUC heroes. So that was a thing. Let me just tell you that. When I started at Nutanix, I was like, I can't say fangirling, but, I knew people like Kees, Ruben, Jarian, and they were just my EUC heroes, and then suddenly I worked with them and it's so cool. So you're going to see all of them on stage in Washington. So make sure you come over and say hi.
Any closing thoughts from you, Sean?
No, it's Gaby. It's been great to meet you and great to have you on the podcast. So thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us today.
Thank you so much for the invite. It was a blast.
And I just want to say thank you to Nutanix. They're one of our founding partners. They jumped on board with us last year when we launched World of EUC, and we are coming up next month on our first year anniversary of the new World of EUC since we've gone through the changes and stuff. So thank you, Nutanix, for supporting us and your continued support. Thank you for coming on today, Gaby. For our listeners, we will put some links in the blog post and show notes so you know where to get the test drive and community edition and so forth. Also, too, don't forget, we have EUC World Amplify coming up in August in Minneapolis. So make sure you go look at the site to get the information on that. If you're a listener and you're not joined to World of EUC yet, please go to worldofeuc.org and join. You can also get the information to join our Slack or Discord, where all of us are in there to help you. All of our partners are in there, like Gaby and so forth, if you have Nutanix questions. So please subscribe and join there. Thank you for listening to the Frontline Chatter podcast, and we will talk to you next time.